Hello, Bronwyn Lund here from BronHolm Tours. I'm about to do an autumn tour of my hometown of Nexø, and we're going to go from the town square through the old part of town and out to the lake, where there's a lovely park where one can sit and contemplate. So I hope you enjoy the tour. So right now we're standing in the town square, and behind us is the waterfall. I'm just going to turn around slowly and look at that. Normally it runs in the summer, and I didn't actually get around to doing a summer video of the town, so we'll have to wait till next summer, and then we can see the contrast between autumn, winter and summer. And behind our little fellow here with the merman tail is the post office, the old post office. It's not the post office anymore, but it was the post office back in the day. In the summer, cars aren't allowed on the square, and the whole square is car-free, and then there's lots of tables and chairs, and it's really quite lovely. And in the winter, all of this plants and the furniture disappears, and then it all comes out again in summer. And if you'd like to see how it looks in winter, I have done a winter walk of Nexø. Now we're just going to head down along the shopping district of the town, and I also wanted to dedicate this film to a viewer who's been really supportive of the channel and really encouraging of me doing these films. And it's a guy named Simon, and he actually grew up in Nexø and left when he's 25. And one of the things that we're going to do is we're actually going to walk past his house and have a look at it on our way to the little lake. And so this film's for you, Simon. I really hope you enjoy it. And all of these streets are of course where Simon spent his childhood years. So I think that's a pretty special thing to be able to film this for him and post it up. So on the left-hand side is the law courts, and I should have looked out with that bicycle. Is the law courts, and on the right-hand side here is our supermarket, and it's called Superbrugsen in Danish. And on the left-hand side over here is another supermarket. That's Lidl, and that's actually a German supermarket, a German chain. But the one on the right is our sort of local Danish chain, if you like. There's a couple of supermarket chains. This one's called Superbrugsen. It's actually quite interesting that we've just walked past a couple of supermarkets, because if we look at this house here on the right-hand side, it's a wonderful example of a merchant's house. And it is actually where the founder of Danish supermarkets was born, and he was actually a priest, and his name was Hans Christian Sønne, and he was born here in 1817 on the 16th of August. And so this guy actually founded the whole supermarket system and the whole way of having supermarkets, from little local stores to supermarkets for the whole of Denmark. And that was someone from Bornholm that did that. So, and everywhere you go, just behind us, there's a lovely lamp on the end of the house. And everywhere you go throughout the streets, there's these lovely old lamps that have been renovated and refurbished. On the right-hand side we have the church, and in my winter town walk of Nexø, I actually go inside the church. So if you'd like to have a look inside the church, then check out that video. And up here on the left is the old school. It's not the school anymore. In the 1960s, or the 1950s actually, Nexø built a new school, which is over the back of the town, and that's where my kids go today. That opened in 1960, and this school closed down in 1960. So this great big yellow building over to the left was the school, and it's actually the school where Simon went to. So that's pretty interesting. This street is called Church Lane, obviously because the church is here, and this street is called Købmagade, which means sort of shopping street, or the shop owner's street. So of course, before all the supermarkets happened, there would have been little stores here and on the sides of on the corners of the street, like this one. And this street is called Skolestraat, or School Lane. So there was also a school down there as well that would have been built earlier than the very large school that we have behind us. And of course, the church has always had a very strong influence. Come on the schooling throughout the Lutheran period. So that's why the school sits so closely to the church. Now we're just walking through a lovely part of town where we have all these old merchants' houses, and if you just look behind you, there's actually a model. In fact, I might walk up to it because it might be a bit difficult to see with the size of things if you're looking at this on an iPhone, but here is actually a model of the house behind us. And this house was originally the mayor's house. So if you became the mayor of town, this would be your house, and it's actually really a beautiful example of a half-timbered house. And once again, we've got one of those lovely lamps out the front of the house. So the street changes its name here, and it goes from being a shopkeeper's street, or Købmagade, to Bredgade, and that actually means wide street, wider street. And that's actually the street that Simon Street goes off. But I'm actually just going to walk around the long way because I wanted to just point out how close these streets are to the harbour, and how much they had to do with trade and fishing back in the day. So this is the street that runs directly behind the back of the harbour. Now the house on the left over here behind the red car, that would have been a merchant's house because it has cellar space underneath, whereas the house right here on the right, that would have been a fisherman's house because they didn't need the cellar, so they didn't go to the effort of making a cellar. Obviously the fish had to be sold pretty quickly or sent up to the smokehouse to be smoked. You wouldn't want to keep a catch of fish in your cellar for a terribly long time. So if we look over to the left, that's actually the back of the harbour. So all of those buildings over there are harbour buildings, industrial buildings and warehouses. And now we're actually coming up to Simon Street. This is where Simon grew up and moved away at the age of 25. It's called Fiskerstraat, or Fisher's Lane. And he lived at number 4. And I've done a little bit of reading around this house, and it was actually built in 1851. And it was built actually as a place of work. It wasn't a place of residence. And it was built out of the back of the house on the corner. So here we have this little house that Simon grew up in. It was built in 1851. And at this end of the house, it was actually a weaver's office, or a weaver's workroom. And the other end of the house was a blacksmith. And then the house that's over there on the other side of the blue gate, that was actually the house of the people who owned the businesses that was in this house. Now, the house over the other side of the blue house, I think that is owned by Simon's cousin still, and he was a fisherman. And of course, to go to work, all he had to do was walk down this street and go straight out to the harbour, and the fishing harbour's right across the road there. And I'll do another tour soon, and we'll go past the fishing harbour and see if we can find Simon's uncle's boat. But what we're going to do now is, so I looked up, sorry, just to finish with the story about the house and its building. The house actually on the other side of the blue gate was built in 1900. So it's actually younger than this house now. So it must have been the house that was built there before. And I know that most of the older houses, the old half-timbered houses here, they were actually built in the mid-1700s. So this part of town was rebuilt, if you like, because there would have been people living here in wooden houses, but were actually built with half-timber and mortar in the 1700s. So there would have been a house from the 1700s here, and the family that lived in that house built this to run their weaving business and as a blacksmith. Now, I've had a little chat with the lady who lives in this house. Her name's Elizabeth, and she's actually agreed that I can go in and film the inside of the house. So let's go in and have a look at the inside of the house where Simon grew up. We have to go around the back. Elizabeth was telling me that originally you could go in the front of the house, but now the entrance is in the back of the house. So this is the entrance to the house. God morgen.
God morgen. Kom lige foran.
Tak.
Og du kan bare gå rundt, som du...
Tak, det gør jeg. Jeg skal lige passe på, fordi jeg tror, den er
Ja.
højere end...
Jo, helt i orden.
Ej, hvor er den sød. Rigtig dejlig hus. So we're just walking through the kitchen, and here this is along the front of the house, so we can see out onto the street. And here we are in the living room. You can see that there's just some lovely timber ceilings, and over to our right is the stove. Lovely old stove. Many of the houses still have their stoves in them. And out the back here is a small guest room. It's very similar layout to Erikssonsgård, actually, with these small rooms out the back of the main living room. Now we're coming back through to the front of the house, and this is just the bathroom in here. Once again, the timbered ceilings, and it's interesting because we have the original architraves and the original part of the building in the doorways. So we'll just go upstairs. Is that okay?
Yes,
We do that? Thank you. We'll just go upstairs, and I guess this might have been where Simon had his bedroom when he was a child. And actually it's a completely open loft. And this is one of the things I really love about these old houses, is that many of them just have a loft in the ceiling, and it makes for a wonderful big bedroom where you can sleep under the eaves. It's very cozy. And that oven that we saw downstairs, this is the chimney. And in many of these houses, well, in all of these houses actually, because they're very similar design, the chimney goes all the way through the house and actually warms the house all the way through. So they're actually incredibly effective, these old wood stoves, at warming up the houses. You can see there's actually a trapdoor here, so you can actually seal off the top as well. It's quite clever. So thank you very much, Elizabeth, for letting us see your home.
Yes, pleased to meet you.
Thank you, and I'll just walk a little bit around, and
Yes, yeah,
that's
no
great.
problem. Have a wonderful
Thank you.
day.
Yes, you too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Just walk slowly back out through the backyard. So that is just a wonderful example of a fisherman's cottage. And once again, note that this house is half timbered, and it doesn't have a cellar. So that is a strong indicator that it was a fishing family that eventually owned that house after it was built as a business area for weavers and the blacksmith. So we're just going to that street to our right heads back up to the school, but I just want to walk this way and down to the lake, because I think this is just one of my favourite parts of town. And we can see the main house there on the left hand side, and also this wonderful example of a half timbered house and across the road here, the yellow one. Now at one stage there was a monastery here in Nexø, and this street is actually called Munkagil, which is Monk Street. And I just want to walk down it. I know I've walked down it before in my winter walk, but I just love, this is just my favourite part of the town, where you can actually see exactly how the old squares would have been and the old streets would have been before they pulled the old houses down and built the streets more so that they could accommodate horse and cart more than walking. So this square would have been big enough to turn your horse and cart around if you were delivering something. And they're just lovely, these little houses over here to the right with the dormer windows, which actually the dormer window would have been added later, of course. So we're just going to walk back out the square and down one of the older streets and have a look at a little bit more of these half-timbered houses, and end up at the lake. The street names are so interesting because they're just named after whatever they're near or whatever's happening on the street. So the street on the right here is called Ferskesustræde, or Fresh Lake Lane, and that's actually where we're heading, is to the Fresh Lake. And actually it doesn't change name, it remains Ferskesustræde all the way down to the lake. So it's called Fresh Lake Lane, which is nice. One. And this one's called Hans Hermann's Geng. I have a feeling Hans Hermann might have been a councillor of the town at one stage. And Geng means way or lane. Come on. You can see there's a whole mixture of different houses on this street, depending on whether people had enough money to pull down their old half-timbered properties and build properties with brick. I love this house on the right with the arched windows and a dormer window up the top. And on the right here is a museum that's dedicated to an author, a guy called Andersen Nexø. And he actually wrote the book Pelle the Conqueror, or Pelle Erobreren, who was one of the socialist movement, one of the earliest founders of the socialist movement in Denmark. It's the story of that movement, really told through fiction, and it's really a great and powerful story, and does a lot to explain how Denmark has gone from almost peasant and serf society through to a society with very egalitarian values and equal rights for its people. So it's very, very interesting story, woven with many different small stories within it, which is always the shape of a good story. So we can see that it's very autumnal now. The leaves are changing into lovely colours. On this green we have a lot of festivals and concerts during the summer, very kid friendly with rides and bouncy castles and things like that. It's always lovely and all the locals come along. And this is our magic lake. Should have worn my wellies, it's a bit muddy. So this does feed out to the sea, out to our left. But it is a freshwater lake. So that was a tour of Nexø town, taking in the square and the shops and some of the old streets of the town, and ending here at the lake. Simon, I hope you enjoyed the tour. This is Bronwyn Lund signing off from BronHolm Tours. Bye for now.